insights and learnings with a particular focus on this past year that changed everything, reordering the world as we know it. But first, some of you may not know AFAC, so let's watch together this 3-minute video that captures what AFAC is about. AFAC strives to build a flourishing cultural and artistic scene across the Arab region that contributes to establishing open and vibrant societies where young and seasoned voices engage with each other in the wake of the massive transformations being witnessed by the region. In such a context, AFAC seeks for works of art and culture to contribute to the following goals. Take advantage of the gray areas and collapse of self-evident certitudes in our region to spur fresh thinking and innovative visions of the future. Search for tools to bear witness to the hopes and hindrances our region is living through with techniques that go past traditional documentation to create new forms of experimentation in writing and ways of dealing with the image. Rediscover the complexity and diversity of our societies and search for marginalized narratives in both the near and distant pasts. Promote engagement between Arab societies and their diasporas, especially after such a large number of Arab assets have become refugees or been forced into exile across the world, which has reflected on them personally and the art they produce, as well as on the various societies they are now working in. And expand the space for civic engagement through the offerings of intellectuals, artists, researchers, and civil society organizations, a space for dialogue, questioning, critical reflection, and tolerance. We work around 5 strategic areas. We provide grants, we develop training and mentorship programs, we build and share knowledge, we broaden the pool of supporters for the arts, and we cultivate appreciation for and engagement with contemporary arts and culture productions by connecting them with audiences. We'll have a quick look at our grants and programs and what we offer. So we support artistic and cultural practices through the 9 following programs: visual arts, performing arts, cinema, music, training and regional events, documentary film, documentary photography, which offers mentorship plus a grant, creative and critical writings, and research on the arts. Now let's have a bird's eye view at the cultural sector in the current COVID-19 environment. Needless to say that the cultural sector is in crisis globally and that we have dismal numbers to show for it. According to UNESCO, in the film industry, it is estimated that 10 million jobs have been lost in 2020, while 1/3 of art galleries are estimated to have reduced their staff by half during the crisis. A 6-month closure could cost the music industry more than $10 billion in lost sponsorships, while the global publishing market is expected to shrink by 7.5% due to the crisis caused by the pandemic. Not to mention the closure of a great many cinemas, theaters, and bookshops, the cancellation of concerts and festivals, and the deprivation of artists from professional opportunities. The sector, which accounts for 30 million jobs, is struggling to survive. If we cast a magnifying glass into the Arab region, the COVID-19 pandemic has magnified long existing structural issues with regards to the arts and culture sector across the Arab region. Indeed, we have little to no social protection for artists, scarce support to arts and culture institutions, knowing that there is no public support in most of the Arab countries, and a weak infrastructure for the circulation and dissemination of cultural and artistic works. As we rethink culture in the next normal and steer our way towards a sustainable ecosystem, designing responsive support schemes bottom-up, collaborations, and adopting new approaches to producing and sharing knowledge are key considerations. AFAC has weathered through the storm and consolidated its efforts, networks, and resources to launch a number of regional and country-specific emergency support schemes while adapting its existing programs to respond to the global situation, accumulating precious learnings along the way. AFAC undertook coordinated efforts with more than 12 local and regional cultural entities in view of designing support schemes that address the dire needs of the cultural sectors while avoiding the duplication of initiatives. The Artist Support Grant, launched in solidarity with artists and independent cultural practitioners under confinement across the Arab region, and whose creative practices and incomes have been adversely impacted by the coronavirus crisis, supported 177 independent Arab artists across the Arab region, hailing from 15 countries, actually. Looking more closely at the applicants by discipline, we had applicants mainly from visual arts, music, performing arts and cinema, but also from literature, photography, and multidisciplinary. And these hailed from countries across the Arab region, including Egypt mainly, or let's say the highest minority, Lebanon, Syria, countries of the North African region, or the Gulf region. The Lebanon Solidarity Fund, co-launched with Regional Peer Culture Resource, or Al-Mawrid Al-Thaqafi, is an exceptional emergency initiative that has extended support towards 208 arts and culture practitioners, as well as institutions and spaces across Lebanon, in response to their pressing needs following the cataclysmic situation in the country, which accumulated an economic, social, and political crisis, further exacerbated by the global pandemic, and took catastrophic proportions with the Beirut port blast. This act of solidarity was actually threefold. AFAC stood in solidarity together with Cultural Resource in order to stand in turn in solidarity with the sector, and this was reflected with our donors, as this fund was the first collaboration between our long-standing donors, namely Ford Foundation, OSF, the Drosos Foundation, and DOON. The second round of support received 98 applications from institutions and spaces and is currently in progress. Looking at the applicants by discipline, we received applications from the music scene, the visual arts scene, by applications by arts technicians, from cultural management, cinema, architecture, and so on, and literature. In partnership with Netflix, we launched this emergency fund, the AFAC Netflix Hardship Fund, in support of the film and TV community in Lebanon. The fund, worth $500,000, primarily targeted below the line production crew, craftspeople, and freelancers. For this fund, we received 380 applications, and 246 individuals from the TV and film community benefited from the 2,000 grants each. Looking at the statistics, 61% of applicants were male, while 39% were female, and the vast majority of applicants were aged between 25 and 45. As the coronavirus pandemic ravages the world economy, cultural institutions are more than ever in need of a lifebuoy that will allow them to stay afloat. The right boost would in fact offer cultural structures, instead of band-aid support, a longer-term strategic assistance that would help them steer through the storm and adapt their core vision and offerings towards a more sustainable future. This much-needed boost came in the form of AFAC's special program, the Arts and Culture Entrepreneurship ACE program, and its flagship program, the North Africa Culture Program, or NACP. A special program launched in 2018 by AFAC in partnership with Rosus Foundation and with the support of the German Federal Foreign Office, the ACE, Arts and Culture Entrepreneurship Program, fosters a collective space for reflection on sustainability and is designed to inspire, invigorate, and strengthen small and medium cultural institutions based and working in the Arab region and whose initiatives engage with communities. Springing from AFAC's 10-year study recommendations in 2017, which stipulated that AFAC considers supporting institutional resilience of cultural organizations, the ACE program is conceived as an experiment in learning and doing. Crafted and delivered by a group of specialists from the cultural sector and beyond, it provides an opportunity for these institutions to re-examine their mission in light of a rapidly changing globalized world, reassess their relevance to their audiences and stakeholders, get inspired by peer institutions in other sectors and geographies facing the same challenges and opportunities, and finally, to acquire new skills and capacities to improve their long-term sustainability. ACE is a unique model for the empowerment of the participating arts and cultural entities and their infrastructure networks, operating in a trickle-down effect for maximal impact. The program has offered a welcome safety net during the COVID-19 crisis, allowing these entities to optimize operations for a more solid institutional sustenance. ACE, in fact, is formed of 3 cycles of 1 year each, with in each cycle 8 entities involved, 8 cultural entities, and for each of these entities, 2 cultural managers, making up 16 cultural managers per cycle. For each cycle, we have 3 intensive workshops of 5 days each, involving each 5 to 20 experts, which bring us to 50 to 60 experts per cycle. And each cycle benefits from one-on-one mentorship as well as an intensive grant per entity. Workshop and the global health crisis that halted our daily lives propels us to think differently and adapt our modus operandi and programs accordingly. So while jury meetings of AFAC turned virtual, so did the workshops under our training programs, namely the ACE program, among others. The second ACE cycle introduced a new element of training of trainers, whereby 5 emerging trainers from the region, referred to as co-pilots, took part in an online training on leadership, facilitation, and planning skills, and continued to accompany the participants during the workshops, whereby their role and intervention were shaped in a clearer, more relevant manner. The ACE program's enriching customized mentorships which offered tactical, eye-opening insights to the institutions and their teams, thereby clearing the path towards their respective incentive grants and their projects that would fall under these, turned virtual too, thereby adding a layer of intimacy to the process. AFAC's latest flagship program, the North Africa Cultural Program, or NACP, came to light in 2019 through a grant from the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, or SDC. The NACP national and regional fund support schemes stretched over 3 years from 2019 to 2022 and focused on programmatic and institutional core support as well as collaborative projects were instrumental in arming the 40 grantee structures and entities across North Africa against the numerous challenges and crises that submerged them and threatened their very existence this past year. AFAC prides itself for the enriching collaboration that it has sparked with the Arab Council for the Social Sciences for their joint program Research on the Arts, or RAP, the Research on the Arts program, which in itself bridges the gap between the arts and academia. Furthermore, the NACP's regional fund spurred collaborations across the region among entities from various disciplines, which generated meaningful programmings. Additionally, alliances between donors for optimal resource mobilization was notable this past year, as revealed by the strategic alliance between Ford, OSF, Dun, and Rosos for the Lebanon Solidarity Fund, which I mentioned earlier. Despite the bleakness of the situation, or rather as a result of it, a tremendous sense of solidarity arose and resonated within the arts and culture community locally, regionally, and globally, thereby rallying the sector in spite of the practically non-existent public support. These unprecedented times of crisis have indeed had positive repercussions on funding and the mobilization of resources. AFAC's long-standing donors and existing partners have indeed mobilized additional funds to support its emergency initiatives. AFAC strives to nurture a robust ecosystem for the arts and culture sector in the Arab region by engaging with a diverse network of givers. Indeed, it is the diversity of sustained funding and being less captive to agendas that allows authentic creativity to flourish. A critical pillar for local sustainability is individual philanthropy. And we have been very happy or even overwhelmed by the wave of individual givers that we have had let's say that we were very lucky to benefit from their generosity this past year. Alliances have also materialized with key players of the private sector, such as Netflix, Spotify, Christie's, and Apple. Building effective programs and growing the cultural sector requires reliance on knowledge produced from both theory and from practice. But knowledge production, like art, also has an inherent value that cannot be read through practical application alone. It also unfolds over time and works in ways that are not immediately apparent. We have been supporting knowledge production and circulation through our Research on the Arts program and our in-house commissioned research, and are now in the process of building an online platform for our NACP program, which will be eventually designed as a source of insights and a pool of curated content that will benefit the entire sector in the region and beyond. I would also like to talk a bit about Imagine Space. As every year, AFAC collects impact stories according to social impact parameters. And the 2020-2021 impact publication, subscribed under the overarching theme of space, is titled Imagine Space. Populated by a series of in-depth interviews with AFAC grantees from across geographies, categories, and genders, Imagine Space casts a captivating light on cultural structures and practitioners' continuous efforts to expand their space, create new, temporarily safer space, or undertake a migration of space in the face of closing civic space, whether due to restrictive national policies or the coronavirus crisis. The various connotations and shapes that space could take, whether public, civic, real/physical, virtual/cyber, or more abstract in the case of collective memory and archives, are addressed in these impact stories. In 2021, and under the title Expanding Access to Culture, AFAC will explore further supporting grassroots initiatives that promote success and participation of local communities especially youth in peripheral regions, to artistic and cultural production. A special program that focuses on community-based and public art as a way of creating an everyday link with arts and culture, and cultivating collaborations across sectors between artists, scientists, researchers, and so on, to engage with the wider issues threatening our world, whether climate change, inequalities, etc., and to offer insights and solutions. In the present context, with the pandemic compounding long-standing inequities and gaps in the region, it is not enough to be open and receptive to all. We sometimes need to adopt a more proactive approach in our grant offerings and distribution and find ways to reach those in the margin and peripheries, thereby expanding access to culture and bolstering inclusion beyond gender inequities towards geographies and untapped communities. I will close this presentation with stories. Stories of response and dialogue by some of our grantees in the face of crisis in the cultural sectors. I guess you have been hearing all sorts of negative stories. I will be actually focusing on positive stories. Let's take, for example, Palestine Rights. Palestine Rights is the first literature festival in North America, to celebrate Palestinian literacy and artistic production. It was first supposed to be a physical festival. It was postponed from March to December 2020. Following the push of the physical event, the festival turned fully online. It received great success as a virtual event with very high attendance and interaction rates, so much so that it will turn into a series of monthly online events. So I recommend that you stay tuned for those because I'm sure they are not to be missed. Next is a very recently released jazz album by Makram Abul Hassan from Lebanon. The original proposal was to record a video release concert in Europe. However, the global changes dictated the concentration of efforts on online marketing and promotion. And in fact, the album was supposed to be recorded on August 7, 2020. August 4, as probably most of you know, was the the catastrophic Beirut port blast. And the date of the recording in the studio did not move. They decided to keep it as is, as a creative act of relief, as a message to say that music can make a difference. So they did record on August 7, and the album was recently released a few weeks ago. Another music project from Lebanon is Balkoon, the Cube Sessions. It's a video web series conceptualized as a way to think about identity, culture, and progress in the Arab world. And in fact, it turned out to have a format that is perfectly fit for the current situation, and it was very well received. From Morocco, Arab Media Lab had a scope of work entirely focused on the digital form and digital platform since the beginning. So in fact, the COVID-19 allowed them to reveal their expertise and make progress. On the less positive side, though, from Palestine, Garbage Gargar, in the discipline of performing arts, had to see the performance postponed from April 2020 to April 2021. And they have a plan B. This project is to produce a 40 to 60-minute comedy horror dance performance about garbage mishandling aimed at young audiences. So their plan B is to film the performance and present it via online platform or through video screenings in local schools. And then representing the entire public performances or public space shows sector is the Echoes Electric with their No Logo project from Tunisia. Here the project is on hold. It cannot switch to the virtual realm as it will lose its soul. If lockdown persists, they will organize residencies with artists. However, the main component, the public installation, is at risk of being cancelled. And on this note, I thank you for your interest and for your time.